What up? It's the Dropping Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Mark Veer. Welcome to episode 2. Special guest, Lupe Nunez. How you doing, man?
Doing well, man. How about yourself, Mark?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you coming on. We talked a little bit off pod. You moved to San Antonio in 95. Let's start when you met Boo Man in 97, how that relationship came about and where you guys are today.
Yeah, I met Terrence in 1997. Terrence was actually running Full Life, which was like the gym to be in, right? It's kind of what Lifetime is today. I guess you can say it's where everybody plays. He was running a league there. Met him in 97. We just got a connection. Became really close friends. Actually, Terrence convinced me to date my wife, who we've now been together 24 years.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't know that. He kind of, pushed me over the edge to get the courage to start talking to her. And, I was in his wedding. I mean, his kids are like my children. My kids are like his. And so we've just cultivated a brothership for, almost going on 30 years now.
So a lot of people didn't know that I was going to have you and Boo Man come on together. I think everybody sees Lupe Nunez, Boo Man, what you guys have created at Hard Work and the friendship you have. But you came up with the idea like, no, let Boo Man do his own thing. I think it was really good for the city. I had a lot of people hit me up and, I think just see Boo Man from a different perspective. Talk on that. You see him all the time. You guys are great friends. You know what he's about.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think, there's a big misconception about Terrence. You walk in the gym, you perceive him yelling at the refs, getting occasionally tossed out of a game. And so, the perception is he's just a big bad bully. And that's not it. Terrence is always fighting, right? Fighting for his kids, fighting for his program, fighting for the community, fighting for the betterment of basketball as a whole. And that's always been him. I listened to the first podcast and Terrence is right. We got into this is how do we help the city of San Antonio? How do we help San Antonio basketball get better? And there's a lot of deterrence. There's a lot of, not so great feedback maybe because of our methods. As everybody knows, that gym ain't for everybody. And so we just decided, we're going to go fight for the kids that are in our gym, regardless of what cities they're from, right? Whether they're from South Texas, from Austin, from Houston, from Dallas, Midland, wherever the kid is from, we're going to go fight for that. And that's Terrence. Terrence is always fighting. It's never about Terrence is horrible at social media. Like he's a horrible self-promoter. He doesn't promote himself, right? In his mind, it's like, hey, I'm going to put the work in the gym and it's going to show when it matters. And that's always just been him. He's a low-key guy. And when you and I talked about this podcast, I thought it would be great if he came on his own and showed that side of him. He'll probably be a little upset with me for saying this, but Terrence has a heart of gold. I don't think you guys understand. I've seen firsthand where Terrence has gone without a purchase for himself to help kids. He's helped pay rents. He's helped pay bills for players in his program that people don't know about. And that's what makes him special, man. He's just a very special person to me. That's my brother. There's nothing I wouldn't do for him. And so I thought it was the right thing. I thought bringing him, being the pioneer, in my opinion, of one of the guys that started doing it as a player, started as with some of the core programs that the city's seen, and now continuing to do it after his kids are gone. That's a special person.
Yeah. And I appreciate you doing that. I think the episode 1 just absolutely got this podcast in the right direction. So I appreciate your guidance and feedback on that. So let's talk about community, right? That's what Boo Man touched on, is we got to get back to the community. What are your thoughts right now where San Antonio basketball is today?
I think there's some fragmentation in the community. I really do. And it's common. And let's get this out there. Right? Basketball's a business, right? It is a business. It drives revenue. It creates jobs, et cetera, right? So in every business, you see fragmentation, right? And you kind of see that now. And everything started from fragmentation, right? Like Terrence was with the Rohawks at one time, and now he's got Hard Work, right? And so I'm all for it. I'm a capitalist. I get it. I understand it. But is the fragmentation saturating the market, or are you giving a value add? And I think that's the key to it all. If you're leaving a program and starting your own program, why are you doing it? Are you bettering the community? Or are you just saturating the market? Am I taking Mark, Lupe, and Boo Man and creating the hoop, whatever, San Antonio hoop basketball to compete against because I didn't get playing time? Or is it because you don't see they're developing? So I'm not saying the guys fragmenting can't be better than where they left, but are you really truly giving the value add, Mark? I think that's where we're currently at right now. is it's a saturation of the market. And the bigger question in the white elephant room, how do we do it? How do we get better? Like,
Right.
how do we improve the community? What I currently don't see is I don't see any reinvestment in the community. And I'm not speaking from a monetary standpoint. I'm speaking of an overall aspect of it, right? You move into your neighborhood because I know where you live and I'm putting your business out there, but it's nice, right? You pay HOA fees,
Mhm.
right? Well, I don't think if you pull up to the gate and see weeds and your gate not working properly, man, you're not going to be a happy guy, right? But you move there because they reinvest in that community. The best businesses do what? They reinvest in their business and they grow. The fragmentation we currently see, it's like if you take the best 10 store managers at HEB and they go each open up a grocery store, the percentage of success for those 10 new grocery stores isn't very high.
Right.
It's just not, right? What are they doing? They're saturating the market. Now, maybe two of them are improving the market, right? But you'd ask the question, why would you leave HEB, right? Why would you, if something is working, why are you leaving, right? And maybe it's you. Maybe you're not looking in the mirror and telling yourself, hey, man, am I telling my kid the right thing? Maybe I need to stick through this a little bit more. Maybe they are teaching me the correct thing, right? So I just don't think there's enough reinvestment. There's a lot of takers and not enough givers, and I think when you give back to community is when you see communities improve. Look at New Braunfels, right? New Braunfels has doubles in size in the last 10 years. Not a coincidence. Why? They reinvested in the community. And we've been stagnant because we're a saturated community of takers and not enough givers. And I'm not saying you got to give money back. I think it falls back to, and I'm not in the event space, but I think, you think about this, right? If I'm an event operator and I want to have the best events there possibly is, and I want to have the best programs in there, right? So if there's a fragmentation of a couple of guys and they leave mid-year, right? Whatever y'all consider your seasons, I'm assuming it's like there's a fall and there's a spring still, right? And kids are playing with someone in February and all of a sudden they formed a new team in March and I'm an event operator. Maybe I take a step back and say, hey, I can't let you in my premier event, right? I can't look at you as an equal to, next level Raiders or Toros who've been doing this a long time. I can't put you in the same pool as them, right? Because I want to control the value of the community. If I just let anybody in, all of a sudden I'm saturated. And I get it, it's revenue, right? More teams, more revenue, more profit. I understand that. But at some point, someone probably has to take a stand and says, hey, look, man, like, in the summer when we kind of start our new series, I'll let your program in, but I'm not going to let you in midstream, right? I'm assuming I always feel like the road to nationals, and you play so many games, and they give you an invite to the elite championship games. So hey, if you didn't play in these, I don't care what player you have on your team. Someone has to set a precedent, and I think that's the only way. Maybe you minimize the fragmentation. You have people kind of second guessing, thinking twice about, man, maybe I shouldn't break off. It's almost like a credit score, right? You cannot go pay your bills and just go to the next bank and say, I'm going to start all over. It doesn't work that way, right? So there has to be some sort of, I think, alignment in the community of the event operators because they're the key. I mean, the event operators are truly the key because without events, there's no teams because there's nowhere to play.
Yeah, I agree. The funny thing is I'll have Mark Ochoa and Mike Daniels on here. And that one is spicy. People are hitting me up already asking questions, and it's going to be an interesting podcast. To your point, is they kind of hold the key to this, right? And I've talked about this. I stopped doing tournaments based on what we got going on. The fact we just have one floor now, but I'd always talked about a tier system. They do it in soccer, they do it in volleyball,
Right.
they do it in other sports, right? You just, in my opinion, how do you jump from going 9-0 at CYO, right? You guys dominate,
Right.
you're doing good, and it's like we want to do something else. Absolutely, you need to go do something else. But then I
Right.
just jump into this AU world to select, and there's nothing really in between.
Right.
To me, that's what I feel is the biggest gap in San Antonio, right?
I
Is that
agree.
you have that recreational league, and then there's this massive
Right.
jump. There's no levels to this. I've told tournament directors, why can't you have a gold division, a silver division? You can call it whatever you want.
And
But yeah,
rotate it, right? And
yeah,
rotate it, right? Because everybody's got an ego, right? We all have egos in this, right? And hey, man, I don't want to be the entry level event operator. I want to be the guy that's called studs. Okay, well, in the fall you do it, and then you rotate it. But there's guardrails and there's guidelines, and we're all going to follow these guardrails and guidelines, and it betters the community. And at the end, the product will be better. Right now, it's a saturated product. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, the numbers show you, not what I'm telling you. I mean, facts are facts and numbers are numbers. They don't lie.
yeah. We'll keep diving through this. I appreciate your response to
Mhm.
that. The purpose of the podcast is to get everybody on the same page. It's not
Right.
going to take one person, right? It's going to take multiple people to kind of get there. It goes from people running their own organizations all the way through to tournament runners, even though referees. We'll dive into all that. All right, switching gears real quick. I do want to talk about, I did the same thing with Boo Man, is a lot of people have hit me up about, parents with athletes trying to get into college. And you've been fortunate enough, right? You got Austin, who's now at Arizona State, and then Taylor, who's now deciding where she wants to go for track. I mean, one, talk to me about how proud you are about having two soon to be Division I athletes and just the process and how that kind of worked out for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we're blessed, man. We're blessed with some very talented children. We are very proud of, and it starts with their work ethic. Mark, you spent some time with Austin, and Taylor's it's a work ethic, right? It's been a blessing to see them both go through their transition and through their journey, right? And I've been on both sides of it. One as very involved, and the other as a supporting parent. And it's both have their own unique journey, but they have a very commonality. Is Tamika and I raise our kids. We never really speak about. We have goals, but we never speak about money within them goals, if that makes sense, right? Like the word professional pros never really spoke about in our house, right? It's our job as parents is always kind of to set a foundation and making them consistently do the right thing all the time, regardless of if there's not an immediate success. And that's hard, right? Because not everybody's willing to stay the course. And it's difficult to do that, right? I mean, Taylor this summer, she qualified as a 16-year-old for like under 20 USA and decided not to do it and turned down all the big meet events because she wanted to work on some technique stuff. And that takes commitment. Her and Tamika spent 7 weeks in Houston. They leave Monday morning, come back Thursday night. And there was no summer vacations there. That was their summer. So on the outside, looking at the tweets and looking at the Instagram post, I mean, that's all great, but the work that's really done behind the scenes is hard. And as parents, we have to be committed. Like your vacations now become the trips of where the kids play at out of town. Those become your vacations now. And it's a total family commitment. And I go back again, my kids are blessed, right? And I've said this a million times, right? DNA is undefeated, right? So we've got blessed kids, but then it's the environment, the environment that we've set for our kids where, man, you're going to win, you're going to lose, but one thing you're always going to do is you're going to compete. And that's a non-negotiable in our house, right? You're going to compete and you're going to work hard, right? You told me what your goals are. My job is to make sure you stay on course with goals. And once you get where you get at, I'm off now. You've reached those goals. But yeah, it's been a blessing. It's been fun, especially on the other side, as track dad, I guess you can say, just, and that sport's a lot easier. I mean, there's no gasso, there's no rivals rankings. The time is the time and the distance the distance. It don't matter who you're racing, where you're racing, what level you're racing. Fast people run fast, slow people run slow. I mean, it's what it is. So I've enjoyed it. It's been very enjoyable. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I'm going to go through some stuff with Cam, my younger one in soccer, then my daughter in gymnastics. It's two totally different worlds. I know soccer. I played it a bunch. Gymnastics, I know nothing. I'm the video guy. Like you said, you're the track dad. I'm the gymnastics. I ain't wearing a shirt, so you're never going to see me in no shirt with bedazzled stuff on. But yeah, it's good to hear that perspective, and I know I'll be reaching out to you at some point with some advice. So I appreciate you touching that. Let's talk a little bit about Austin, right? Because of course, this is a Dropping Dimes podcast. We're talking basketball. Talk to me about raising him while you were in the game, obviously a lot more heavily involved. So just speak on that a little bit for everybody.
The hardest part about raising a kid being in the game was and I was younger then and a lot less mature than I am now, right? Is the competitiveness of myself stepping over the line of being a parent, right? Kids always want to impress and want approval from their parents. And there was times where Austin was looking for my approval and I was trying to correct him in basketball, right? And there was times I crossed that line. I'm the first to admit that, right? And looking back, if I could redo it over, it's like, man, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I shouldn't have let it linger on. And Terrence has that great rule, the 10-minute rule. Now, trust me, he didn't always have that rule now. So I saw he said that on the podcast. The reason he's got the rule, that's a whole other story. But it was, Austin, it was almost like I had to work harder for the other kids in my program than my own because I was around my own 24 hours.
Right.
And I had success doing that. And he was surrounded by some successful kids, but there was never a question about if Austin could play basketball. I mean, there was never a question if the ball should be in his hands, if he should take some last second shots, why he's on the floor. There was never a question. The question started becoming when you started comparing him to state and national kids. Hey, is he getting ranked higher because of his dad's influence? And listen, they all end up where they're supposed to end up. You know, water's going to find a path of least resistance. That never bothered me. It really didn't. Maybe bothered him some. You know, we actually never talked about it, but Austin always kind of played with a chip on his shoulder. That's always kind of just been him. It's his personality. But as far as it affecting me and the outcome of our goals, it never once filtered into our house because I never allowed it to. It never filtered into me. And you know, our children are going to look at us, right? It was like, hey man, that's their opinion. It is what it is, dude. Go prove it, right? If somebody's saying you shouldn't be as ranked high as you are, go prove it, right? At the end of the day, I was never one that ever took away from others that were his peers that he played with or and against.
Yeah, that's good stuff. We have a lot of parents that listen, and I think a lot of them are either struggling with this right now or are going to end up going to have to face it. So I do appreciate that. Switching gears a little bit. So now you've transitioned away from hard work, right? And you
Yeah,
told me this. You was like, hey, yo, when Austin's done, I'm out. And you stayed true
yeah,
to that. And Blue Man stayed in, which is great. And
right.
he's all in, you're all out. That's okay, right? And you
Yeah.
told me that years ago you were going to do that, and you stayed true to that. Talk to me now about what you're doing as a consultant in this space, but you know why you stepped away from hard work and what you're kind of currently doing now.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny you say that because it was like, you know, I knew as much effort as I put into it, I knew that there's no way I could duplicate that without a son involved, right? It's human nature. It is what it is, right? It's an innate like you want your best for your children, and how can I do that while helping others? And that was always how I went into it. And I knew when he was done, I was out. And selfishly, ego. Like that last team we had was really good. And I mean, you talk about Gerald Colbert, LSU, Jay Sean, Abilene Christian, Manny Obaseki, Texas Tech, Vince Iwuchukwu, USC, Austin, Arizona State, Ramon Walker, U of H, Colton Benson, West Point Army, Joseph Van Sant, Liberty University. Those are, I mean,
That's the
there's no way
squad.
I could duplicate that again.
All right.
I didn't have the energy to do it. No, and I hadn't planted the seeds and the classes behind it to do it. And so at that point, a little burned out, wanted to be a dad, wanted to enjoy his last year as a parent. So I took some time away. Me and Terrence had talked about this. This was not a secret. People think, oh man, Lupe just left. Boom. That was not it. Terrence, I give him full credit for the foundation he built for my son and all these kids I'm talking about. Like he had a huge impact on that. I mean, I didn't train him. That was Terrence. I didn't coach him. That was Terrence. I was just more than a general manager putting all the pieces together. As I stepped away for a few years, a great friend of mine named Patrick Coombs. And Pat Coombs came up with Sonny Vaccaro. And for you guys who just think you know Sonny Vaccaro, you probably really don't know what influence he truly had on the game of basketball and where it's at today is because of him and the influence that shoe companies have. So Pat started with Sonny back in the Reebok days, the ABCD camp, Adidas, 20 plus years. And so Patrick ran Under Armour when I was there at corporate and sat on the board of directors, and he and I became really close friends. Someone close to him left as everybody leaves, fragmented, right, into a position with WME. And so a couple times he reached out to me. I wasn't interested. We had, after a steak dinner and a few bourbons, he convinced me to come on as a consultant to him. Basically, my job is his company was taken over by Three Step Sports, who is the largest sports operator in the country. I think they do over $300+ million in revenue. And they do Adidas, they do Under Armour, they do the perfect game in baseball. And so my job is basically helping identify kids at a high level for like Steph Curry camp. We invite 10 to 12 boys and girls a year. So I travel across the country to all different high school events, watching kids and putting them, placing them on a board. And at the end of when it's time to select kids, my opinion is like, hey, I think we should take these 4 kids. And it's two group, in a room of 2 or 3 of us, we decide that. Same with the Elite 24. LA Snead played in the game this year. Ariana Roberson played in the game last year. So kind of the same thing. There's a few other groups I consult for, but I got NDAs, so I can't speak on that. But it's interesting, Mark. It's allowed me to see basketball from a different perspective. I've had some great mentors in this game. Hanif Hill, who started the Under Armour circuit, now is with Nike. Chris Rivers, who I said I'd love to get on this podcast,
Yep.
who ran Adidas for years. And, I'm constantly either at lunch dinners, Zooms with NBA executives and NBA scouts and national media and college coaches to get of what is it they're looking for when they go watch a kid from a professional general manager perspective and NBA scout, and how they tier the kids from, they see them as a sophomore, junior, senior, and going transitioning into college. And what exactly do college coaches really look for in players, right? They're going to tell you something different when you're out than when you're a program director or you're an AAU coach, because the messaging is a little bit different. It's been, I enjoy it. I think a big part of what I do enjoy is it's allowed me to mentor some people in this space. And there's a guy that, some of y'all might know on this podcast, named Ani Umana. I met Ani when he was at Future 150. You guys probably don't know what that is, but that used to be like, tournaments they used to run. And Ani was working for them. And Alan Branch, who was my mentor when I got into space many, many years ago, I saw a void in what he was doing. And I said, man, there's a young guy, I think he could help you. And man, to Ani's credit, he's took off and he's ran with it. He's on the field of 68 now, one of probably the largest national basketball podcasts with Jeff Goodman. He's got NBA teams now looking to employ him. I mean, he has really catapulted himself to a whole different level. So it's been really fun to watch and help him and kind of guide him through that process by everything I've been through and through my relationships. And so it allows me to get in rooms and really understand the meat and bones behind what, all the way to the top, what a general manager in the NBA is looking for, all the way down to what a local scout is looking at and how they view it. And you'd be surprised. The perspectives are different all the way from the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. And it's allowed me to help some parents still reach out to me, give them some advice. I'm not all pro hard work, people assume that, right? That's my brother, but man, I'm always going to do right by kids. If people ask me an opinion, I'm going to give it to them.
Interesting. I knew you were on the plane all the time. I see you on your Instagram with your leg room. I had no idea you were doing it. I appreciate you sharing that. That's big. And that's big for the city too, to have somebody here locally being able to have those relationships all the way to the top. That's good. So another question, it kind of leads into that. You touched a little bit about college coaches. You speak to them regular. Let's talk about what they're talking about when it comes to San Antonio, talking about kids on the boys' side here.
I think I think we're stagnant's a word kind of, well, maybe that's the word I'm using, but for them, it's like, haven't seen them improve or, and I get a lot of criticism, right? When I'll say an eighth grader that's 6'3" or 6'4", and they say, man, what do you think? And he's playing below the free throw line. I said, man, it's hard to tell right now. Let me, he's got to do this, and this. And I go back and see him as a sophomore, and he's still playing below the free throw line. And I said, man, that's not going to translate, right? And that goes all the way back to community. Is that kid on the team, but he's the biggest kid, and he's going to play there because it's translating to wins. Well, those wins not necessarily translating to success long term. It's short-term success, but it's not long-term success, right? And as a community, we got to see, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to go put him with Mark's team because they got a 6'7" and a 6'6", and now he's able to play more a position that will translate to college. And even though I got to let him go, and I go from winning every Saturday and Sunday to maybe now getting third place, or maybe not even playing Sunday and being knocked out Saturday because I no longer have my star player. But what are you doing? Are you helping them, or are you not helping them? And so that's what I get a lot of feedback, is that college coaches want to go back and see a box checked every time, right? Now, you can't uncheck boxes, right? You played hard the first 2 times. You got to still keep playing hard. You can't unplay hard and then check this box and then not check that box, right? You got to continue to check boxes all the way across. And I think that's where we have some shortcomings as a community, is they never reach their potential, and some of them is higher than their ceiling because they don't have a great base early on. And so now I'm asking a kid that's played below the free throw line all his life, and his junior going into his senior year, or sophomore going into his junior year, or junior going to senior, sophomore going to junior. It's hard to transition. I've never brought the ball up. I've never played on the wing. I've never guarded a wing, right? Because they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster at 6'4". The offensive rebounds, I'm telling you, you go back and traditionally look at those kids, 6'4", 6'5", 90% of their points, offensive rebounds.
Yep.
Right? Because they play hard, right? I mean, I'm not discrediting the kids, but you can't do that at a higher level. It doesn't translate as well, right? So now it's like, yeah, Lupe, I like him, but I'd like to see him play in this position. I'd like to see this, right? And then is the AAU coach, and Booman touched on this, talking to the high school coach about this. Hey, I talked to school A. They love Mark Veer. But man, Mark won't pass the ball as a point guard. Mark just wants to shoot all the time. Right, but you're the opposite, by the way. That's why I flipped that, right?
Yep.
And so hey, high school coach, this is what he wants to see. Now, is the high school coach willing to do that? And that's hard too, because man, they're judged on wins, right?
Right.
Like they're judged on wins and losses. So it's a fine line, but all that goes back to community and what's the ultimate goal. Right? What is the ultimate goal? Is the goal to get kids to school at whatever level, the highest level they can play at, right? And there's some great people doing that out there, you know. Lou with the Toros does it, you know, outside of Terrence. Dee and Koty have done a phenomenal job building organically with all San Antonio kids.
Right.
You know, I'm missing some people, so please forgive me. Mo with the Next Level Raiders, right? Like those guys get it. They understand it. It goes back to, can we have a conversation with the high school coaches, the kids are freshmen? This is what the parents' goals are. And you got to be realistic with the parents. Hey, I want my kid to go play at UT. Man, it's probably not going to happen. Nobody wants to hear that early on. Like, all right, eventually it's going to work itself out. So the ones who listen to the people who've been through it and done it and aren't taking, who are givers, not takers,
Yep.
is probably who you want to surround yourself with. And that's where you're going to see the most success. The people who are giving back and not just taking.
You know what that reminds me of, and I'll tell a quick story. Is, you know,
Mhm.
when we were the Admirals, right, and our team was loaded, and I
Great point.
never understood until probably later on, probably a couple years after, is that I just had a newborn, Ava, and our team was legit, probably the best in
Oh,
the
yeah, we're
city.
good. Very good. Young
Yeah,
Houston Elite used to go at it. Really good. I
yeah,
remember.
yeah,
Jay Cryer.
yeah. We had a lot of fun doing that, and
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand when you and Boo Man approached me about like, hey, we need to get these guys on the circuit, and it went sideways for a while, right?
We met
I
at
felt
Hooters. I
like,
remember very
yeah,
vividly. Hooters on 281. Me, you,
yeah,
PV,
and
and Boo Man.
I felt like
Yeah.
you guys were stealing my kids and trying to take over my program. My ego got in the way,
Right.
and what was better for the kids was I couldn't travel. I couldn't put them on a circuit that you guys could have platformed to get them out there playing against bigger, better competition. And it took me a while to realize that we're talking community, right? That's what we're talking
Right.
about. If I have a
Right.
kid or I've got kids that I can't get them where they need to get to, I have to let go. And it took me a while to realize that. So that kind of just, entered my mind. I said, if again, community that's what it's about the kids. And you touched on it, is we're thinking long term for these kids, right?
Right.
So we take a Langston Love for me, right? That's the best player I've had in my program.
I still call
From
him the franchise to this day, by the way.
right. He was my biggest player. Playing a
Yeah.
big on offense, if they zoned us up, I got to put him at the high post. He's looking at me like, are you kidding me, right?
Yeah.
He transitions to your team. Now he can play a combo guard, a shooting guard.
Right.
So
Right.
it took me some time to figure that out. I agree. I see it a lot, and I know you see it. We see that kid is like, what are you doing on that basketball team?
Right.
You should not be on that team. You need to go.
Right.
And again, we talking community. That's, I feel, to your point, we can change the narrative, and then coaches will see the progression. Because you're absolutely right. You see those 7th, 8th grade kids. Yeah, they're inside. They're bigger, strong, and everybody. 2 years later, they're the same kid.
Same kid. They have to check boxes, and that's the beginning. You got the anomalies. Like Kingston's one of the best in the country. Like that's an anomaly, right?
Yep.
But look at the separation between him and the rest of that class. Might be the largest gap I've ever seen in a long time. Now, granted, the kid's freaking super talented, right? And I'm careful to call kids pros and not pros. I don't like doing that, right? And
he's a pro. I'll say it. He's a pro.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, he's going to make money, right? How much he makes,
right? That's the question.
He's going to make plenty of it. He'll be perfectly fine. Yes, agree with that. It now comes down to goals, and we'll go back to community goals, right? If I know, and you have to be honest with yourself. Like, listen, I've got some kids that you have to be able to look at the kids you have and say, man, and listen, it's not dream killers. It's not like, hey, we're crushing dreams. We're not doing any of that stuff here. We're just being realistic also.
Yep.
It's like, hey, Mark Veer needs to go play against better competition. He doesn't need to be playing in San Antonio every weekend. He needs to go to Houston, Dallas, maybe when you get to middle school, venture out and go play a national tournament. So you see what's out there. So the parents don't get, because some parents will get caught up into the wins and losses too now, and I want my kid to stay on this team because we get to beat them. But if I move my kid to this team, what I'm saying? There's a whole bunch of egos that have to get out of the way. And it's hard. I was there. I was there at a high level where I didn't want to let some things go, and you have to understand if we really want to better the community, there has to be one common goal. And what is that goal? Or maybe we're just a community of event operators profiting. Listen, Nothing wrong with that. But there has to be a common goal. What's the goal?
Right.
Is the goal to get kids to college? Is that the community that we want to be known as? And how do we help every kid, regardless of what program they come out of? Or are we just a community of saturated market where, hey, you know what? We're okay being the Dollar General of basketball. And we're just going to be a saturated market. And everybody's going to make a little bit of money, and everybody's going to have a bunch of teams, and everybody's going to play, and every kid's going to win some trophies. Everybody's going to win a ring. Everybody's going to be happy. Like, that's the first thing. What's the goal? What is the community goal?
Yeah, and I touched a little bit of Boomman, but he didn't go into it. Maybe I look at it like this. Now I know the city's growing. There's always going to be way
Seventh
too many
largest
kids,
city in
right?
the country, or sixth
Right.
largest city in the country. What?
So
Yeah.
there's a need for more basketball teams. Like I totally get that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
When I look at the girls' game, I may be biased. I'm a women's Division I referee. I love the girls' game. I'm all about it. I feel the girls' game in San Antonio is in a better space than the boys. But I also look at it like if you have an elite basketball player and they moved here or they've just become elite, where do I go play? I said this. I think there's 3 organizations. If I'm missing one, I apologize. But we're looking at
Players First, Hoops Elite, and Finance.
Right? So you've got, hey, you need to go to one of those, right? Okay, so we get on the boys' side, and we touched on them. Toros, Hard Work, Next Level Raiders, FOA. I know they're doing some good things, right? But man, I just don't feel coaches are like, you need to go play here. I've seen it on the girls' side. I have no problem saying this. Lady Hoops, they do a good job. But a lot of players have gone to go play for Player First, Finest, Hoops. Right. They've left because they've outgrown that program. I'm not seeing that enough on the boys' side. And again, I don't know if it's the parent, if it's the kid, or it's the coach. But to your point, if we all have the same common goal, we need to push these kids in the right direction for their development, long-term, getting to play college basketball. Like you just said, we have one. Did we have one last year, one this year on the boys' side playing Division I? I don't know the numbers. You may know better than me, but it's way too low.
I mean, here's, and I'm not on the girls' side. Ray and I are super close, and we spend a lot of time. And I kind of pick his brain a little bit on the girls' side because I'm interested just to see how it works. And it does work totally different. Yeah. I don't know how many girls really have as big an ego as boys do, right? So it's probably easier to get 2 stud girls to play with stud 3 girl because the egos aren't as big.
Yeah.
As with guys, like, well, shit, man, I went from 15 shots to 8.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. That's a theory. Could be totally off basis on that. But something definitely needs to be done. And, Mark, you've done a great job of putting this all together. Maybe we do an open forum, at some point at a coffee shop or, somewhere. And we just kind of, 7, 8 guys sit around the table. Like a lot of guys, maybe everybody bring on your podcast.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of, when it's all done, sits around a round table at a restaurant, lock yourself in a room and say, how do we figure out the community? We're not getting out of here until we come up with a plan. And then who's all in. Whoever shows up is willing to help. Yeah.
And I tried that with tournament directors, and we'll touch on that whenever I get to that podcast too. But yeah, until everybody's on the same page, we ain't going nowhere. We're staying. All right, let's jump into the Q&As. I got a bunch, but it'll keep it like 3 or 4. All right, and they're really some really good questions. All right. So first question is it okay for players to have trainers or training outside of their organization that they're playing for?
I have no problem with that. My son trained with you. I have zero problem with that. As long as the trainer understands what the kids' goals are and they're aligned with the program and they're aligned with the high school coach. So I think as a trainer, if you're a really good trainer, you're going to go watch your kid play. You can't go watch all his games, right? And if you can't watch them, get film, right? If you're that busy, get film. I get it. You got family time. I'm not saying you got to go be in the gym all the time. And what is the AAU coach expectation of the player? Are you working on what they're going to? It does no good to work on something that doesn't incorporate, the AAU coach or team doesn't incorporate, because 2 things are going to happen. You're wasting your time, or this kid's going to go off script, right. And now he's going to make himself look bad. And then does it align with the high school? And you have to train differently. Like we would train kids differently AAU season versus high school season because there was different roles. If you play with higher level kids, most of these kids all are the best kid in their high school team. It's like you go to college, right? Your role changes. The one of the ones are the ones. Those are very different. We don't have those, those are anomalies, right? The Anthony Edwards, et cetera. You're going to have to learn how to play a role. And so I think, yes, I think it's perfectly fine as long as the trainer is adapting to what AAU's doing and what high school's doing. He's open to feedback. One thing I've never liked, and I never negative recruited ever. I don't like that. I kind of just stay in my own box in our own lane. Here's what we do. What they do is none of my opinion. Is, hey, why are you training with him, man? Like he sucks and he didn't play high school. I don't think you should have to play college. All that, whatever. It's nonsense, right? If you have a track record of developing kids at a high level, then they know what they're doing. And I mean, there's very few in the city that I know. I mean, I see stuff that just comes on my timeline. I'm like, man, who is this? Like all of a sudden, everybody's trained now. I mean, there was only a handful of guys back in the day. It was Terrence, it was you. You know, Ray Caldwell did some stuff. Marco, Austin started with Marco when he was like 8 or 9 years old. Rivera.
Yep.
You know, and it was all basic fundamental stuff. And then you would always ask questions. You would always ask, well, hey man, like how are they going to play Austin? Like who's on the team? And you knew all those kids, so you really didn't have to go watch the games because you grew up coaching in those against those kids and with those kids. So you had an idea of, okay, if he's playing with X, okay, I know how, and you train both of them, but I know what we need to work on because they're going to play off each other. So yeah, absolutely, I don't see a problem with it as long as there's communication between all.
Yeah, and you made a good point. I've got some skilled trainers coming on. I tried to get Coach Kramer, but I'm still going to try to get him on.
Forgot about Kramer.
I know that's one of my big mentors. But I agree. Like we're talking community. These skill trainers, man. I mean, I love a lot of them, but again, to your point, they're just not asking the right questions. It's like, hey, I'm just going to work on this because that's what I know. But is that helping the kids? So yeah, that's a good point. All right, next question. Why do you feel you needed to go outside of the city? And you touched on your roster loaded, and you've had multiple rosters over the year, hard work, not just strictly San Antonio kids. Why did you feel that you needed to go outside of San Antonio to form that team or teams?
So I went to fill a void. I mean, outside of Vince Chuku and during those classes, there was no 6'10" Jerome Colberts walking around here, right? And let's say whatever void I left the city for is because I couldn't fill it with what the city had and wouldn't give me.
Okay.
So if there was a 6'10", which I don't recall a 6'10" in those classes anyway, so I went and filled the void at certain positions because I had an obligation to a platform, right? Yeah. I signed a contract. I had to go get the best players. I mean, that's I signed the dotted line, and so I had an obligation to go do that. So I went and filled it with the voids that we had. So if we didn't have an athletic wing like Emmanuel Basecki in San Antonio, he was a 5-star. He was like 10th or 11th in the country. You know, we didn't have that here, so I had to go get him. So that's why I left the city to fill a void with what we did not have in the city.
Appreciate your honesty. Yeah. So now let's talk about what is a legit shoe team. I think no one is educated on what an actual legit. You guys were Under Armour, but I'm sure it's the same on each circuit.
It is. So, you know, Nike's got, I think they're going to go down to, I think, 36, maybe 32 teams. Adidas has 40. Under Armour has 24. I mean, those are your circuits. Now you've got New Balance, who did something last year. The gentleman who did it now kind of transitioned into Puma. They've got one now. I know they do it in collaboration with JUCO. So there's a JUCO event going on at the same time. Their event's going on. So it's probably a little bit different of a model. I'm not sure. I can't speak on them I doubt it from top to bottom that everyone's getting cash and product, probably just the better teams, right? It's usually how those secondary circuits do it. Not to say it's not a good circuit. I'm not saying that by any means. I'm just giving you some details of fully funded, not funded, et cetera. It means you're actually funded. You actually have a contract from corporate, right? Not from an operator, but from corporate, right? So the contracts at Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour come from counsel lawyers at Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour. Right, they don't come from an event operator. They don't come from a second tier team, right? And I get it; it's a business, right? The franchise team. So if it's, I'm just use a random name here. If I got Dallas Hoops Elite, who is a Adidas sponsored team, and I'm going to call it San Antonio Hoops Elite, and say we're Adidas, well, you're not. You're just an affiliate of the shoe sponsored team, which is based out of Dallas. I'm not saying a kid from San Antonio can't go play on that team, and that kid's going to be fully sponsored, but that program's not. Because if they were, they probably wouldn't be charging what they're charging. Right. Once again, givers and takers.
Yep.
I gave a lot. I mean, I joke, and I still got kids, you know, names on my damn balance sheet from as much as I was given, you know, back in the day, because it costs money to operate at the high level. That's not cheap, and they don't give you enough. Like the shoe teams do not give you enough money. I'm telling you, they don't. They don't give you enough cash to operate. They don't give you enough. They give you enough product, but not cash. So you got to go figure out how to generate cash, whether it's through donors, whether it's through self-funded, whether it's through throwing events. That's what a true, and you go look it up on their websites. That's all the teams are up, Adidas, Nike, and Under Armour. And they're going to have their 24, 36, 40 teams. And it'll say whoever's sponsored, and it'll have their logo. They don't have your logo. They don't have San Antonio, you know, Hoops, Adidas. It'll say Dallas Hoops, Adidas, you know. And that's how you know. I mean, that's a true shoe circuit sponsored team from top to bottom. 15U, 16U, 17U. That's when you know all three are playing on the circuit. All three are playing in all their events. And now some on the 15U level, you can opt in and out, right? Because of cost purposes. So not everyone decide, you have to take 17, but not every, and 16, but you don't have to take a 15. You can say, hey, you know what? I just want to fund my 16, 17s, my 15s will stay local. I'd say about 20 to 30% of the programs do that. The majority do travel with their 15s everywhere.
Good stuff. Yeah, good information. We touched on this earlier, but we'll still dive into it because I don't know if you want to, add some more points. So
Sure.
we talked about San Antonio, one of the largest cities in America. I think you said it was 7 or whatever it may be. It's just crazy. But we only send a few, and this is probably more on the boys' side, but maybe on the girls as well. I know we send more on the girls. We only send a few kids Division I each year. Why is that?
We're not checking enough boxes. It goes all the way back to community. It starts at the root of it. It's the community. And I'm going to use the 6'4" 8th grader as an example. Because how many of those have we all seen, Mark? How many 6'4" 8th graders, 6'3" 8th graders have we seen that dominate from the free throw line down? We've all seen it.
Yep.
And they end up 6'4"-ish, maybe 6'5". And where are they still playing? Free throw down.
Yep.
Right? Because they're having success. Because we don't have, even though we're the 7th largest city in San Antonio, we don't have a lot of length in our city. We don't have a lot of height in our city. We don't have a lot of 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", 7-footers walking around. Going back to why did I go outside the city? Well, we didn't have those guys here. Trust me, I would try to go get them. If we had them, we just didn't have them. I mean, Tristan Clark, the kid that, he didn't even stay here in the summers, the kid that went to UTSA, that went to Stevens.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Clance were just talking about him the other day. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. He went to Stevens. He didn't play here in the summer. I mean, forgive me if I missed somebody. Vince Uwachuku, give me another guy that you can remember that's that big and tall and long.
Maybe Zach Clemens, right?
Zach, I'm sorry, but Zach left.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Zach left. So, okay, not many. Right? It all goes back to community. It all goes back to community. And is that 6'4" kid should have started transitioning his freshman year to his natural position and checking a box. And people who are surrounded by him, hey, am I doing the right thing? Is the trainer, we're backtracking to everything you've touched on.
Yep.
Is the trainer communicating with the AAU coach and then the high school coach? What should we be working on? How are you going to play him? AAU coach knows, hey, man, he's going to play the 2-3 for me. All right, let's work on some stuff for the summer, and you're going to go show the college. College coaches know. They know. They just want to see you have the ability to go do it. They don't care if you go back and play the 4-5 in high school. Yep. But they want to be able to see you do that in the summer and say, okay, cool. And because guess what? You're still going to show flashes of it in high school. You're not going to just get stuck. If you get the ball on the wing, you're not going to give it to the freaking point guard and then go post up if you've been comfortable at the wing in AAU. Not going to do that. You might be guarding a 4 and a 5. Hey, man, the college coach loves that. I know he can. Now I know he can switch it. Now I know he can switch this position and guard it because he guarded it in high school. Unfortunately, in San Antonio, he's probably guarding another 6'4", 6'5". He's not guarding a 6'8", 6'10". That's why. I just think we're not checking enough boxes because starting from the early on in the community, they're not realizing what exactly this kid needs to improve on. And you got to be able to see it ahead of time. And this is what it needs to look like when he's a senior. We get so caught up on what it looks like today, but I think it goes back to community, and we don't understand enough to check enough boxes to win it.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll have high school coaches on here as well.
Great.
And I have great relationships with high schools. That's more just from a referee standpoint when I was signing director, but they're not raving about AAU basketball. I tread lightly with that, but I don't see a lot of high school coaches like, oh, I love AAU basketball. I'm out every weekend. I know what kids are coming into my program. There's some absolutely that are very active. There's not enough. Community.
Everything back to community.
It does, yeah. So last question, we'll get you out of here. How did you learn who to trust and who not to trust during this journey?
Well, wherever you're at, you got to make sure there's a plan, right? And you got to put that back on the directors, because what's your plan for my kid? And how are we going to get there, right? And then there should be some follow-up, whether if it's during the recruitment season, every week. Man, it could be a quick 2-3 minute call. Hey, who'd you speak with? Hey, it's the open period where college coaches can call. Hey, how many people called you? Well, none. Director, how many guys did you talk to about my kid? Well, none. Well, shit, you're probably in a bad spot, because if the director cannot pick up the phone and call a college coach at the level that the kid in, there's a problem. And they have to go cultivate those relationships, right? They have to, picking up the phone and say, hey, I've got Mark Veer. I'm recruiting Mark Veer. Yeah, but what about Lupe and Terrence? And, and if you start trying to push players on coaches, that is the number one turnoff. They won't tell you that because they want to recruit Mark Veer. Oh yeah, we'll have bring them on for sure. But it's like, dude, I don't know, I'm dealing with this guy, right? So that's how you lose credibility. When you start pushing other kids because of one kid, you lose credibility. And so for parents, you got to make sure that you're able to be somewhere where they have a plan and then follow up with that plan. And then don't be scared to reach out to those college coaches. Their emails are public. Ask the high school coach or your program director or AAU coach, hey, well, who did you speak to? There's nothing wrong with that. If it's within the period, the coach can answer the phone. Is follow up, have a plan, follow up with the plan, and how are they following through? Because a lot of things change courses. They
Yep.
recruit. All of a sudden, portal kid. Oh damn! Now what happens? You have to be able to pivot, and all that starts with relationships. So the most important question parents need to ask themselves is not necessarily yes, who to trust, but am I in the right spot where there's resources available? Because it's gonna happen when my kid's not getting recruited like I think he is, or he was getting recruited and now they took someone else and there's a pivot. Does that coach have a plan B, C, or D for me? That director? Because that's what this is all about. Once again, we go back to community. And what is the community goal? Is the community goal just to get little Johnny on varsity and get him first team all district? Or is the goal, and there's some programs that, hey man, that's that program, go play there. This program, they're really good. They've got relationships with college coaches. They can pick up the phone and make a phone call. It don't take long to figure out if, man, they're just stringing me along and they don't have those relationships. And I've just now, man, and it sucks, man. I've seen a lot of people go through it where it's too late. And I hate to say that. You take that back. It's never too late. It's really hard now. And
Right.
now, instead of going anywhere, maybe that kid should go to prep school. Maybe he should go to a fifth year, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. And colleges do recruit fifth year seniors. They do recruit out of the prep school circuit, right? And that sometimes has to become an option because unfortunately the community and someone within it led them wrong.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I don't know if you know this, gymnastics, we got a parent playbook. It's legit, yo. Legit. I mean, and Ava's 11, but it talks
Right.
about recruiting and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, the expectations from a parent, what the expectation is from their coaches. I was like, man, we need this in basketball. We do. I mean, again, if we get back to community and just doing what's right.
You have guardrails.
Great. Yeah. Maybe you need to come up with a Lupe Nunez playbook for everybody and sell it on Amazon.
That's funny.
All right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate your time. This is early morning for Lupe. I'm taking away from his gym space. Getting his workout on. But I appreciate you hopping on again, helping the community. That's what it's all about. Any final thoughts for the listeners?
No, I mean, I'm not hard to get a hold of. Any further information, any way I can help them, I'm easily accessible. If you don't have my phone number, you can easily reach out to social media, send me a message. I'll respond right back to you if I can help you in any way possible. If I can't directly help you, I'm going to know someone who can.
Yeah, Lupe is well connected. I know that. And that's with everything. He's the plug. If anything you need, and I'll put all your descriptions, all your links and bios below that people can reach out to. Again, my man, I appreciate you hopping on, and I'm sure I'll have you back on. Take care, my man.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to the Dropping Dimes podcast. Make sure to go follow us on IG at Dropping Dimes Pod. Remember, each Friday we'll be dropping a new episode, so hit the follow and bell notification buttons to never miss any content. Let's get better together. We out.